The Angry Chicken is a production of Amove TV. Bookmark amove.tv for more gaming and esports shows. The Angry Chicken is directly supported by listeners like you via patreon.com/TAC.
Everyone, get in here! Ready for action! I've got the beast in my sight.
A podcast about Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft. This is The Angry Chicken.
Greetings and welcome back, everyone. This is The Angry Chicken. I'm Garrett Weinzerl. He's Willie Dills Gregory. She's Jocelyn Moffat, and we're here to talk all things Hearthstone. Welcome back, folks. How you doing? You guys survived those ranked play bugs? Did you make it through okay?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because normally the first few days of the month is where I would tactically not play just because you're letting people kind of rank up and then making your road a little easier. Mm-hmm. So they just did that for me, except they extended my couple of days at the beginning of the month that I don't play ranked, because then when I actually got there, everyone was still at the whatever rank they got reset, unless you're one of those people who magically got to Legend last season and was reset to rank 1 5 stars, which many people were.
So that's not supposed to happen, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
When people said they were getting reset to basically 1 win away from Legend, I was like, wait, what? I thought we were supposed to lose 4 ranks. I thought all you guys were supposed to be down at rank 4.
There was all sorts of weird stuff. So just for anybody who's not aware of what happened here, anybody who doesn't smash the F5 button on Reddit/rhearthstone, basically when they first changed over, the whole new rank system was supposed to hit, right? Where you only derank 4 ranks from where you previously got to. The highest position you reached on the ladder in February, you go 4 ranks back, right? So that meant I think my highest was rank 4. I was supposed to go back to rank 8, right? People who were Legend were supposed to go back to rank 4. There was all sorts of weirdness with that, where most people were seeing rank 4 if they were Legend. Some people were seeing like rank 5. Some people were seeing other random things. Then people were trying to click. This happened actually right after, because I was actually streaming right when it ticked over, right? Mm-hmm. And so I clicked play ranked. I was like, oh, cool. All right, well, let's play a ranked game. And it would basically just immediately say that it was like timing out or something. But it wouldn't take a second. It would just like kind of pop up a little error message and say you can't play. So basically it was just completely broken. You couldn't even play it. You couldn't even click that button and do stuff. You could still do Wild Brawliseum. You could still do Arena. You could still do, Dungeon Adventure. You could do all that stuff, right? But you could not play ranked for like the first 2 days. And then they just shut it down because they realized, okay, it's completely broken. We're turning it off ourselves on purpose. It'll come back. Then it came back, and that's when people started to notice that they were at weird ranks that weren't technically where they were supposed to be based on what Blizzard had told us, right? So a few people won 1 single game and were Legend again right after that happened. I know Stan Sithka was one of those. Like, he won 1 game, and then it said Legend rank 1.
Yeah.
Then there was another weird thing. So this is just a complete mess. So I'll just kind of go through like all the weird things that were happening. Then there was another thing where people were getting ranked, or people were getting matchmaked against Legend players at like rank 6, right? So people were queuing in and then seeing Legend. Legend players were confused. They were confused. This normally doesn't happen.
Well, it sometimes does happen within like the first day of the month when there's only a couple of Legend players, right?
Only when you reset all the way to 16 and there's like 5 dudes who have ranked that high at that point. Yeah. But at this point, there should be plenty of people between ranks 4 and Legend, right?
Especially when people were seeing Legend ranks of like, I'm Legend rank 2000. That means there should be 2000 Legend players. There's no reason why Legend players should be getting like paired up against ranks 5 and 6.
Yeah. Now, the issue also might be that there's less players between ranks 4 and 1 because a lot of players just got that weird bug and were all in Legend all of a sudden. So there was just a large gap, right?
Yeah.
Of where there would normally be, by that point, there'd be less, but there'd still be a significant number. So there's some theories. We don't really know 100% what's going on, but they did apparently do a hot fix on that as well. So that shouldn't be happening anymore. Then there was also an issue where people were reaching Legend, and then they were winning and going down in ranks.
Yeah.
And
it wasn't so much that they were winning, like they had wins and losses, but the problem is that it's like there's two different values. It's like the value that it was using to actually pair people up and give them a match in a short amount of time, so lowering the queue times, was queuing them up against people who were like rank 4 or 5. But then when it was calculating how many points they should lose or win, depending on the outcome of the game, then it was saying, oh, well, they're like a rank 4 player. So it was like looking at MMR to try to match them up, but then just using rank to decide points. So people, when they won a game,
but I know for a fact that people were literally winning a game and then going down in points. Like they were like at they would be at like 500, and then they would win a game, and then it would pop the thing up. They'd be at 678 or something like that.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, that's never really happened. Right?
Well, it does happen sometimes if there's like when people are hitting Legend and being placed higher than you, then your rank can go down even when you win. So it might be a function of. Yeah, but it might be a function of just the way that people are hitting Legend now. There's a whole bunch of people doing it all in spurts or something. I don't really know. Yeah. And this is kind of the crux of the problem. We don't really know. There's a whole bunch of these observations that seem to be giving us an idea of what's going on. But it's like, because Blizzard hasn't actually come out and said, like, this is how your MMR is calculated and this is how we're doing things. It's basically left it up to the community to be like, well, regardless of how it's working, it's broken and not the way it should work. Because, yeah, a lot of people were, I can't remember who exactly was it posted on Twitter, but like posted his whole record of like, and he had a win rate of, I want to say like 70%, and he had dropped from like 800 Legend down to 2079 or something. And it's like, because when he would win a game against rank 4 and 5 players, he was getting like 60 ranks. But then when he lost a game, he was losing like 250 ranks, because it was like he was so, air quotes, highly favored in those matchups because he was playing against rank 4 and 5 players, when those players really aren't probably rank 4 and 5 level players, right? And that was actually Ixar's response to that tweet thread, is kind of what kicked off a lot of this, is he basically said, well, if you're paired up against a rank 5 player, you should be expected to win most of the time. And it's like, whoa, wait, what? No! Like, that's not right. Especially in it, like, if you're playing at Legend rank and you have a win rate of between 70 and 80%, and you're going down, like, in a game like Hearthstone, it blows my mind that this is the way the ladder's working. And they think it's okay.
Well, yeah, they don't think it's okay, but it's so. The thing is that we don't really know how this stuff is calculated, because when you're not Legend, they matchmake you not based on MMR at all, based on your actual stars. But in the past, I've been under the impression that kind of how well you do and stuff ends up making your initial placement into Legend ranks, like what number you actually enter at. And I'm pretty sure that's what most people's consensus has been. So that means you do have an MMR. It's just not being used to matchmake you, right?
Right.
And then the moment you dip into Legend, now they take your MMR and do something algorithmically with it to figure out where you land amongst all these players who have been maybe playing Legend for a while. And then you got to figure out where you land among players who are first entering, because it wouldn't make sense if, like, let's say I have a really high win rate as I enter Legend. Well, I've been playing non-Legend to get there. Some guy who's been grinding in Legend
would be lower. Yeah,
should technically probably have a lower win rate. So if I just leapfrog that guy, that doesn't really make sense, right? So there's like two ways you would kind of expect that this could go. One is just put people in whatever, like put people dead last in Legend every single time they enter. You could make an argument for that being like the way it should work, so that the earlier you get there, it's like you start at a higher number, and it kind of gives you a little bit of an advantage, right? And then, like, as people get in, as there's 10 people, you're 10, 11 people, you're 11, blah, blah, blah. You could make an argument for that being the way to do it, because then it's like, okay, now I'm here. Now I have to start climbing up this ladder, right? It's like a brand new ladder begins, and that uses MMR from that point. Or, like, suddenly everybody is now 1,800 or 1,500 or whatever your baseline is, and you move up or down based on that. Or you could make the argument that this MMR thing works. You just have to kind of adjust it as you enter Legend. So, like, whatever you're at, maybe it's knocked down a touch. and now you have this Legend MMR.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't really know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
And again, this is like the problem with the communication stuff that we talked about with Arena last week with our guests and stuff, is that people just want to know. We don't need to know we don't need to see the algorithm. We don't need to see the exact math. We just want to get an idea. Yeah, especially the pro players who are banking their livelihoods on things like this.
Yeah.
Right. And then there was another issue too, which I think Orange brought up, which was basically saying like we don't even know if MMR got a hard reset or a soft reset, because apparently Hearthstone in the past has done both and never really publicized any of that. And so he was bringing up the point that it seemed, again, from observations of like his friends and other pro players and stuff, that when they hit Legend, some of them were being placed really high because they finished really high on the ladder last season, and some of them were being placed really low. And it was just like, but I had, X win rate getting into Legend, and now all of a sudden it seems that last season counted, but nobody was told that last season was going to count, and, people would have maybe played differently and, tried harder, tried to get out of the dumpster, air quotes, dumpster Legend, to, if they knew it was going to, again, impact their placement in this season. So there's been a whole lot of problems. And they technically did put a hot fix in that was supposed to fix things, but doesn't really look like there's still players who are getting the same sort of bugs or bad matchups and all that kind of stuff. So I don't even really 100% think it's been fixed. But yeah, it's just, there's no transparency from Blizzard whatsoever when it comes to all of this laddering, and a lot of the players are really upset.
Yeah, I mean, devil's advocate, it's their prerogative, though, right? I mean, it's Blizzard's call at the end of the day. This I would assume that this is by design. I would assume that Team 5 doesn't want players to alter the way that they play this game based on an attempt to game the MMR system. And I can understand that to a certain degree. The fact that you guys just spent 12 minutes, just talking, just wondering what the hell is going on. That's not healthy. That's not a conversation that should be being had. It should get to a point where they step in and peel the curtain back a little bit. However, I will say this caginess is about it's the first time that Hearthstone has been on the same level as most other Blizzard games, because we have a lot of the same questions in Heroes right now.
Well, and I think too, a lot of this is really being brought to the forefront because now we have so few games to get to Legend in a lot of cases. It's like before, when you had to play 150 to 200 games because you were set so far down the ladder, maybe it wasn't as obvious that how much of a role your previous, or maybe, we've had soft resets and your previous Legend ranking has actually, or your previous season's MMR, whatever you want to call it, has actually factored in, but it was such a small factor because you had so many games played in that season just to get to Legend that it kind of cushioned the blow of that a little bit more. Like maybe because now you've got, in some cases, 1 to 2 games to get to Legend. It's like they have to place you somehow, so they're using last season's Legend ranking. Could be that too. And I don't necessarily think like telling us how it works would allow like gaming the system per se. I don't necessarily think like maximizing your play and your chances to place high in a system that they've created and that feeds into HCT, like you should be telling the pro players the best route to take and the best way to do that. Like that's information that they need, I think.
I mean, if we're gonna go down that rabbit hole, I'm in burn it down territory. The ladder should have nothing to do with esports. It's a broken system.
Yeah, there's that argument too.
Like let's throw everything out and start over.
But given that this is the way they've built it, and they've said that you get, if you finish in top 10 Legend or whatever 3 times, you're in the seasonal championships. Like that's the system they built. So if they want ladder to count, then they should tell people how ladder works.
Yeah. My point is though, is the example you gave of Orange, who you said he would have played different if he knew that last season counted. That's what I'm talking about. If he knew last season counted, in your hypothetical, you're saying he would have played differently, and that's what I'm saying. I think because they're not telling us anything, I think maybe that's the goal of Team 5 is we don't want to influence the play habits of our player base.
And maybe that is what they're thinking, but I think they're thinking wrong.
That is fair, and I'm in your boat. Yeah. So yeah, it's weird. I think we're gonna come back to this interesting dichotomy with other things we're gonna talk about today, with not sharing enough and maybe sharing too much. But more about that when we get to it. But whatever the case is, if you're not in Legend, it seems the ladder is working fine. I waited 2 days to get in, and I was like, cool. I went down 4 ranks, and it worked correctly, and this is wonderful. I haven't moved up at all. I have stayed in the same rank despite playing a lot of games, but that's neither here or there. This is a really cool system that, frankly, I'm impressed with.
Yeah, I mean, I got reset to 7. That makes me really happy.
Yep.
Go team.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. So, anyways, we have arena changes. We have more tournament clarifications. Arena is going to play a big role in today's show, so let's get into it. This week's Hearthstone news, even though we kind of already talked about some of it at the beginning of the show.
Good news, everyone!
All right, so about an hour before we sat down to do this here show, we got a dev update on upcoming arena changes, and these are some changes. My goodness, I wasn't quite sure what I was expecting. I was kind of expecting arena to just go back to normal at the end of Wildfest and whatnot, but it seems very soon things are changing quite a bit in the arena. So to kind of boil it down, the simplest thing is that I guess maybe this is already in the game, but they're assigning power levels to cards, and you will now be shown when you pick 3 cards at a time. Those 3 cards are going to be all of similar power level. You know what that means? How
so they don't necessarily all have the same rarity. They just have some pre-assigned power level, and
Which the community already kind of has, right? With like
Blizzard
the
has
list.
this too. We know that because they are adjusting cards up and down based on like win percentages and things like that, and these small amounts, right?
Yeah, but
they've been doing that for a while, and they periodically adjust them. But
to that, I will say that
we've never seen a pure tier list number assigned anything with them.
No, and I don't think that's going to be transparent in this mode. And that's also going to be a theme of today's episode is the lack of transparency. But
here's the weird thing about this. So, first, I mean, that's really just the main change that's happening. But they do still say that you'll be guaranteed better than a common pick, or better, I mean, different, non-common, 1, 10, 20, and 30 like you currently are. But there will be maybe a common card mixed in with those rare and epic cards. The percentages of legendaries and things are supposed to somewhat stay the same. The spell stuff, weapon stuff, that's all supposed to stay the same. But they are also rolling back, at least for now, the increase in a new expansions draft odds, right? Like before, you'd get a boost. And when Kobolds and Catacombs come out, you're going to see more Kobolds and Catacombs cards by, let's say, like 200%, right? So that's actually going to be rolled back a little bit. And also, they're going to
I feel
give bad cards less often, like bad, quote unquote, bad cards less often.
I feel like it's been long enough now, and again, coming from a not very often arena player, but like the set's been out for a while now. I feel like you should just have no more bonuses, and
usually they have a bonus for a certain period of time, like Shady Bunny mentioned last week, and then about 2 months in, they roll that back.
Right.
Not all the way, but they roll it mostly, like they lessen the impact, right? And this is, I mean, there's a few reasons why this is done. They want to highlight the new cards. They want to give people a chance to play with the new cards. If you're an arena-only player, and maybe you're not buying packs from the new set, how do you really guarantee that you're going to play with the cards from the new set, right? So, it makes sense to a certain extent. And I kind of would like to see this continue to happen, but maybe to a lesser extent going forward. I still like to see it happen, but things like sometimes when a card like Firelands Portal is introduced, and it's boosted 200%, it just suddenly just makes mages ridiculous, right? And so that's the issue when it happens, is if there's one OP card that's in a certain class and it is boosted like hell and you're getting a class boost, all of a sudden it takes over arena. So that, I see good reason why rolling this back works for now. But I'll say that I'm very excited to just see a difference, because I do think that there's, in the video, the example he used was like Fireball up against a Wisp and something else where it's like, there's only one pick here. It was like Ice Barrier and Wisp. He's like, there's only one pick. So is this fun? Is this fun for you to have 3 cards where there's only one pick? And that logic is sound. It is not that fun. to pick an arena draft where 28 of the 30 picks were all just, yeah, that's the best card, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, when we drafted last week after the show, you mentioned that multiple times. The most interesting picks we had to make were between equally, in a lot of cases, equally bad cards, but the same could be said for equally good cards. When the obvious choice, that's not a thing. It doesn't exist. It's not obvious.
Yeah, and that's really what kind of makes or breaks, a 12-win deck or a 7-win deck, right? Is if you make those choices properly, and then you play basically flawless Hearthstone, then your deck is what's going to take you all the way to like the top, right? And it's having one card that might not be good but fits your deck. Those are the interesting choices to be made, and so this is going to increase those interesting choices for sure. The thing that concerns me a little bit is these numbers that they have, I imagine, are based on the card's current win rate, and that win rate will probably change fairly drastically when it's not next to a bunch of bad cards, right? Like when these cards are suddenly always against cards of equal win rates, those win rates are going to shift over time. So hopefully they have a system in place where this is like a living tier list, right? Where that they can continue to adjust these numbers based on how the cards perform once this change is put into place.
Right. So it's not just like Primordial Drake gets a 6 and that never changes. It's
then it's always that, and it's always up against Fireball, and it's like, well, when there's more good cards, maybe it's not as good of a card. Maybe it's slightly lower than it once was, right? And that's the kind of stuff that, because let's say this is what happens, and suddenly people are drafting tons and tons of powerful cards, and they're not ever getting a bunch of crap, and they're not filling their board up with little weenies, and Primordial Drake's not killing a bunch of stuff on turn 8 anymore. That's going to change how that card actually should be valued. And so, I get the feeling that they're smart enough to realize this. So, I'm going to guess that's how this is going to work. They will continue to go through and adjust as time goes on.
Yeah, and that's kind of I'm with you, and that's kind of what I was getting at the very beginning, Dills, when you said that they've always had a tier list in the game. I never really thought of it that way. I always thought of it as they had stats, and they went in by hand and adjusted offering rates of specific cards. So my initial concern for this is, what if we don't agree with what they think is a powerful card?
That was my question too, right?
I mean, that's always been the case, though. I can go look on the Lightforge tier list, and I could disagree completely with the Dwakta and Merps, and they frequently disagree with themselves. They change their tier list really often, and sometimes cards go way up from what they used to think or way down. So.
Yeah, the difference though is between...
I don't know. I need to see this in action, and I need to see it in action over time. Really. Yeah. But I do think this is a nice step. I think this is...
It's an interesting idea. I like it.
Because it would be one thing if Hearthstone rarities worked the same way that say Magic rarities work, where the rarity kind of depicts how strong the card is in a lot of cases, right?
Yeah.
When you see a really good Magic deck, most of the time you're not seeing a whole bunch of commons in that deck, right? No. But when you see a really strong Hearthstone deck, there's tons of times where it's just full of commons.
I think this
is not how they do it.
In an era like this, where we're actually inundated with a slew of interesting Hearthstone news and changes announced to the game, I think this is the most interesting change that's been announced for me personally, because this is not a change that I ever thought of. This is as much out of left field as I think any of the recent Hearthstone announcements have been for me. I don't even think this is a suggestion we made on the show before, and we have spent a lot of time thinking about how we would like to see Arena improved. And so that alone is what makes me very excited for it, because it's the first time in a very long time I've been completely blindsided by an announcement for Hearthstone.
Well, I feel like offering cards by rarity just kind of felt so core to Arena, like it was something that they would never change.
Yeah, to me, I
so
think...
that's why we were just like, well, no, that's how Arena works. So how do we tweak it within that like set of rules? And Hearthstone's like, meh, screw the rules. Let's make new rules.
Yeah. This is something that a digital format allows you to do. I think in my head, I never even considered something like this, because when I thought of an Arena draft, it was tied so closely to a physical draft in a game like Magic, where like a card pack will always have 15 cards. It will always at least have this many commons, rares, etc. or uncommons, and that's how it'll always be. And this is one of the few times I've, short of the way the cards are designed and all the RNG elements in Hearthstone that would be impossible to, well, not impossible, but horrible to try and do in a paper game. This is one of the times I'm really like, wow, Hearthstone, you're really leveraging your digital format. So I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I think this is like whether the experiment itself ends up working or not, this is the type of thing that I want to see them doing, is radically updating this system, because it is, at this point, it's a really fun format for a lot of reasons, and then for a lot of reasons, it's really stale at this point. And I think we all have said in the past, we would also just like to see more limited formats. But I also don't want them to just kind of say, okay, Arena it's fine. Now let's make something new, and then we'll never touch that again. It's like that. I think is still going to be a core bit of gameplay is Arena, and so you should always be kind of working to make it as good as you can. I do really think that this is going to make Arena a lot more competitive and interesting, because if there's going to be like more value in each pick, it's going to make the better players rise to the top more often, right? Right now, you can just luck box into the most insane deck ever, and it doesn't matter who you're playing against or how good they are or what crazy decisions they had to make during their draft. It's like, well, I just got 3 Flame Strikes and 5 Firelands Portals, and so here I go. And now the power level of everything's going to be up, so it's going to be more about making a deck that works together with the rest of itself, right? So
I would play.
I was going to say, with the raise in power level that we're going to see in Arena, do you think that people who are used to even going infinite in Arena might not be able to anymore?
No, I think they will even more. I think those players, the reason why they're able to go infinite is they're able to adjust, like as expansions come out, as things change, as offering rates change. They're able to adjust, so they'll probably be able to adjust to this pretty well. I think we're going to see a higher skill gap. It's gonna increase that. The players who just casually pop into Arena now and then, more often than not, they would either have a good deck or a bad deck. Now they're going to have kind of a baseline, and then it's going to be how well they do at the drafting process.
Yeah,
so it's going to increase that skill quite a bit.
Something you brought up over the last 2 drafts that we've done with you, Dills, is, again, the importance of making the right decision between 3 cards where it is not clear. And if this system works, you're going to be doing that for your whole draft. And I think that's what separated great Arena players from pretty good Arena players.
Yeah, you're going to do this 30 times, not 3 times, right, over a draft. And that's a huge difference. If I have to make 30 strong decisions,
30 important decisions,
If I'm good at deciding what card is best out of a pack of 3, if that's something that's in my forte, then I should have 30 times a better chance or whatever than the before. I mean, not exactly, but you know what I mean. Like, I've now made 30 quality decisions compared to somebody else who might have made 20 or 15 or sometimes like 5 because they don't know what the hell they're doing, and they're all good cards and they just pick one that they like the most, right? So.
Yeah. Which is totally how I'm going to draft, by the way.
I want to pull one comment out of our chat before we leave, because it is a thought that popped into my head, and I kind of want to talk through it. Cardigan says, I like playing with bad cards in Arena, and I hope that doesn't go away. And when I first watched this video, when I kind of first read the write-up, I kind of had the same concern, but upon kind of reviewing it for the show, the way I'm hearing this now is, oh no, there'll still be bad cards. It's just that you're going to have to pick between 3 equally bad cards.
Well, they did say that there's going to be less cards of below average value. Yeah. So, yes, you will play with less bad cards, but there will be cards that are bad and constructed that will still exist in Arena. That's not going to change.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, it depends on your definition of bad. Like, there are cards that you never see in constructed, but they have interesting applications in Arena. So, like, they might not be rated as below average necessarily. Like, again, we don't know what Blizzard's tier list is going to look like, so we don't really know how all these things are going to be rated. But I think you'll still see, because of the nature of Arena, I think you'll still see cards in Arena that you don't see in constructed.
Tons
for sure.
Tons of So I want to, don't take this the wrong way, Cardigan, but I hear this argument quite often, and I don't go to a pool hall and be like, I like playing with a crappy house queue instead of my awesome queue that I bought for money. I like going to a basketball court and playing with a deflated ball sometimes. I like to do you really like to play with bad cards, or is it kind of satisfying when you play a bad card and still win the game? I mean, I think there's like some novelty to it, but I think you won't miss it as much as you think you will.
Counter analogy, I get really excited when I get to go rent a cheap, crappy car because it's kind of fun to thrash on a junker.
Okay. But I'm okay. Yeah, sometimes I like to eat like fast food, right? Like, and I know that it's like crappy food. Like, yeah, sure, we can make analogies back and forth all day, but I think really the point is like when you're doing something competitive, like I like it when I have a wooden bat and everyone else playing baseball has metal bats. Like, no, not really.
No,
you like it when we all have wooden bats, sure. But I don't know. I think there's like nostalgia that you think might happen, but probably won't actually happen in practicality once it actually goes live.
Yeah,
people always talk about how they liked waiting till level 40 and paying all of their gold to get a mount in World of Warcraft, but at the time you didn't like it.
No,
and you have nostalgia around it, and that's what it is.
It felt like an accomplishment, but
sure,
it's not. It's only
and that's what this is.
Yeah,
winning with a bad card feels like an accomplishment, right?
Mm-hmm. No, it does.
But you'll still be winning with bad cards. It'll just happen. Like it'll be different. It'll still feel good though. You'll still feel good about right now. You'll feel good about all of your decisions more now, I think, than you will before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To me, it's more important that I get to play with cards in Arena that I don't get to play with in Constructed, not necessarily the quality.
Yeah.
So
I think there's fun to be had in all of the elements, right? Like, yes, winning with a bad deck can be really fun. I remember one of the funnest times I ever had in Arena when I drafted this awful warrior deck, and this was like way early on in beta, and I was just like, oh my god, this deck is so terrible. How am I ever going to win with it? You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go face every single time I have a decision. I'm never going to trade. I'm just going to go face. And I went face, and I went 9 wins. This is back when it was 9 wins was the most.
Right.
You could get. And I went 9 wins with the deck, and chat was like going crazy the whole time. Like, how the hell did this work? And yeah, it was super fun. But I've also had a blast playing like the most broken deck with Deathwing and all this crazy. Like there's fun on all sides. Right?
On both sides, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we moving on. We got more tournament clarifications. Young Woo went and did an interview with IGN along with a friend of the show, Cam Shea, who typically writes and let us know when they land a new Team 5 interview. And thanks, Cam. You asked like every question I ever wanted the answer to in reference to recent Hearthstone developments. So I really enjoyed this interview. I recommend everyone go and read it in full. But I'm totally cribbing the stuff I find the most interesting for today's episode.
There's a couple other things I'll add at the end here too, because there's some stuff about Naga Sea Witch and Barnes, which I don't see in here. But
yeah,
right, yeah, there was stuff about nerfs and
he covered a lot of stuff. It was it was a pretty thorough, long interview.
Yeah. Anyway, there was a big emphasis on Team 5 having, quote, plenty more aspects of this tournament fantasy we want to continue to explore. And that pretty much covers everything Young Woo said about tournament. There's basically no concrete specifics on player count yet. It sounds like it could be somewhere between 100 and 200, according to Young Woo. It is only Swiss format for now. There's currently, and it doesn't sound like any plans at launch for a wait list or any tools to help with no-shows, and no plans for banning at all either. So
yeah.
I walked away from this interview as deflated.
I will still be using Battle 5
as I could possibly. Yeah.
Well, I think the thing that was the most disappointing for me in this interview was the amount of times that he mentioned like sitting down with 4 to 8 friends and running your own little tournament on a Saturday night. And I was like, well, are you trying to like make our expectations go from here to like here? Because a lot of the things that are missing are things that I would think are kind of integral to organizing a tournament, like waitlisting, class bans, Swiss formats. There were some things that he mentioned that are going to work better than I thought. So specifically when it comes to your actual decks, we thought it was just going to check if it's a standard or a wild format. But Yang Woo specifically said, like, locking in decks that you're going to play in the tournament. It will be impossible to edit them, so you can't be teching in cards and stuff. And the Hearthstone client will handle all of that, which I think is phenomenal. Like, yay, good. I'm happy about that, because that was one of the hardest things to do as a tournament organizer, especially like online. Even at LAN tournaments, like I'm going to HCT Toronto this weekend, and like they're saying basically the best they can do is like random deck checks. Otherwise, you just have to watch your opponent and make sure they don't play anything weird. I'm like, so it's so on the players, and the admins are trying to help, but if it was just handled in client, that would be so much better. So I was happy when he clarified how that was going to work, but I think there's still so many tools, and it's really telling that they're like, no, we're not using this for HCT. It's like, well, if tournament mode isn't good enough for your tournament, maybe you should make it better.
Yeah, and this was kind of what I was alluding to much early in the episode when, like, I want to be very careful here in, like, I want to make it abundantly clear that, like, I want them to have this conversation with us. I want them to be as open as Yangwu is being here. And I don't want them to recoil when my response is, this is the worst thing I've ever heard come out of Team 5. This sounds like the most bare bones, tone deaf implementation of tournament mode they could possibly make.
Well, and
it is.
Know if it's
but it's
like
the first version. It's the very first version. And I think, so I'm reading it. I'm getting the same feelings as you guys, but I'm also on this one. I'm going to give them a little bit of room here, a little bit of wiggle room, because I would rather it just hit as quickly as possible in its whatever form they can get it out in, and then the iterations. That's when I'm going to hold their feet to the fire. Is after it's out and the feedback is happening, and the iterations need to come fast and furious at that point, right? Like we need to get something almost every release that's adding a feature, fixing a feature, making it more useful. But I'm okay with them saying, okay, this is beta version. We just want it in the player's hands.
Right.
Because I get that this is a huge thing that isn't currently in the game. So sure, give it to me sooner than later in some terrible bare bones form. Okay.
Let me poke it, try to break it, and do beta things.
And now start working really hard on it. But it sounds like one other thing that I wanted to point out that I took away from this was, in the past, we'd always heard we're not actively working on tournament mode. In this interview, he said we have a lot of effort going into tournament mode right now. Like it sounds like it is one of the major pushes that's happening at Team 5. So
and I don't necessarily think that this is tone deaf, because I mean there are specifically I think it was wait lists and something else, I can't remember, but there was multiple times in this interview that Yangwu actually said, like, we have read all your feedback. We are sure, even class bans is another one. You've got it quoted in the notes here where he says, like, I'm sure we'll get feedback saying that you guys want it. So, but again, they're just trying to get something in our hands, which I think is good. And I think they know the feedback that they're going to get. It's just going to come down to the players, I think, and, how much feedback we're sending in. So it's really important, as it is in any time there's an alpha or a beta for a game, you got to tell them through the official channels exactly what you want out of this feature. And if you're trying it and you're playing with it and it's not working, you need to tell them so that they get the feedback they need.
Yeah, and that's
to
not
then
a post on Reddit
put their
either.
resources where the community wants them to go.
Yep. That's like posting on their official forums and everything like that. That's the best place to do it,
great,
even though I know Reddit is where everyone goes.
But yeah, don't go to Reddit, guys. Go official forums, or if there's a feedback button in game, or like whatever official channels they give you, use those channels and make your voice heard to the devs, not upvoted on Reddit. It's not as important.
Yeah, the class bans thing I think is the one thing I would say. He said I don't think we need to ship that on V1. I think you do. Personally, I think if there's anything in this entire interview that I read where I'm like, no, that is a thing that needs to happen in version 1 of the beta, class bans, because that is core to a tournament experience right now in Hearthstone. And I mean, no one's going to use this damn function, period, if they can't ban Warlock, or they can't ban Paladin, or they can't ban whatever. They can't make a lineup and then target something. People are they're just not going to use this.
Well,
right?
I mean,
and that would be a shame.
As how stripped down as it is, you can't run a tournament with just this. You're going to have to use a piece of third-party tournament management.
But how are you going to use another piece of if your decks are locked in and it expects you to win
because you would
2
only
out of 3 games. How do you ban something somewhere else?
The ban takes place outside of the game. When you lock in your decks, it happens post-ban.
Yeah,
Well,
but you'll
but- yeah,
have to
but
lock
you're-
in 3 decks.
That would be a
and
permanent
then
ban, you're right.
The
And that's
client will
it for
think
the
you need to
tournament,
win with
so-
all 3 of those decks.
Yeah, no, never
Yeah,
mind. You're right. Now I hate it more. Thanks, Dills.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
I was
like
gonna
they're
say,
not
you
going to
can't
work
lock in
together
every
on that.
game.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yep,
Yeah,
never mind.
so-
Oh, damn.
It'd be
That's
like
terrible.
your first opponent would decide your ban for the entire tournament.
The only way that would work is then like both of you would have to pick your bans and then start games, and one would concede one and one would concede the other, and then you'd like continue from there. I guess you could do that, but
it's just man, it's just more half measures, man. There's so much half measures in this game. Like Dungeon Run is a giant half measure. Arena has been a half measure since its inception. It's getting better. It could still be so much better. We can't even have freaking competitive arena for God's sake, and we're how many years into this game? And then finally tournament mode gets announced, and something like bans is like what? Like when I say it's tone deaf, I'm not coming after Young Woo's comments specifically. I'm looking at the feature set. I'm saying the feature set is just like, what do you mean you need feedback on this feature set? Like there should be no doubt in anyone's brain that this game needs a friggin' ban. Have you ever watched a Hearthstone tournament? Anyone? It has bans.
yeah, there hasn't been
that
like a
kinda
single
comes back
tournament
to
ever
my
that didn't have
HCT
bans.
comment, right? Like if you have HCT as your big flagship tournament and there's all these tour stops and everything else, and you're not using your own tech, then maybe you need to improve your tech.
Right.
So I will say this though, I do agree with him that you want this mode to support the fun little tournament with your buddies. And I think that if you made it, the problem that I'm having with that, and like you brought it up, Jocelyn, is that he keeps using this as an example, as if this is the target, right?
Right.
As if and I think numbers wise, you will probably see this happen more than you will see
The big
giant
tournament.
128 person tournaments that take a lot of time to organize because people have to have motivation to want to do that, whereas a few friends just could get together and one off a little fun tournament for themselves, right? Which is great. So numbers wise, you'll probably see more people using it for small tournaments. That being said, if you target it to be able to be used for big ass tournaments, then by default it can also be used for little ass
Right,
tournaments.
yeah.
So it's like, don't aim for the little one and then hope that the big one somehow fits in. Like aim for the big one because you can go the other way a lot easier, right?
Yeah.
Than expand a thing meant for 6 to 8 people to 128.
It is already excruciatingly easy to put together your own damn tournament for 4 to 8 people. You don't.
It really is.
You
yeah.
can get a Post-it note and figure it out. Okay, that's
I am
not
really
where the
excited
issue
though because
is.
when I'm streaming, like I think this would be a really fun feature is to just be streaming and just be like, okay, I'm setting up an 8-person tournament. I'm going to pop
Here's
the code for the tournament
yeah.
here into chat. First 7 other people to join. We're all going to play a little tournament during my stream. That's going to be super fun, and I'm really glad to have that. And it's just in the client, and it'll all just kind of happen. I'm loving that, and I will use it for that all the time, right? All the freaking time. That's going to make my stream so much more fun. It's going to be really cool. But that's really not the point. It's like the point is like that's like you said, Garrett. You could do that. You could take a piece of paper and just write a bracket onto it and figure it out pretty easily.
Right.
The people who are really needing this feature are the people who are running all the big tournaments.
Yeah, exactly.
Your Strive wires and your Battle Fives and stuff.
Yeah. So again, I mean, kind of like I guess to walk back my own comments to a state of sanity. To go back to like my hope for the arena changes that they just announced. I think it will be great if what they're saying on paper works. With the arena thing, I'm all for it as long as whatever your tier system that you come up with actually functions. And the same thing here, I'm all for iteration on your tournament mode as long as you actually iterate on it. Because I look at this and I say, observer mode still is a broken pile of garbage. You haven't touched it since it originally was put into the game. And we've seen no improvements whatsoever, and that's the kind of thing that I look at, and I'm like, and that scares me when I see that tournament mode is releasing in quote unquote beta with barely any features. I just think, well, great, it'll be a decade before this has everything in it that I was hoping for.
Well, and I mean, the thing with spectator mode is they rolled that out very, very quickly because of, what happened with the game. They didn't really expect it to explode in a competitive esports style. And then when they realized that people were broadcasting tournaments and stuff and they needed a way to spectate games, and, I mean, you guys remember when we did the Invitational, like how like crappy and broken, like we had to ask the players to record their own stuff so we could watch it back later, and like, oh my God, it was crazy, right? So, I mean, they needed to get that in as fast as possible. And I think that this is a little bit different because they've had some time to work on it internally. We're going to get it in a beta. They're looking for feedback. Like, I feel like it might have been different if we'd gotten a beta of spectator mode, but they just needed to get something out there. And now they've just been kind of trying to play catch up on all the other things that their game is trying to do. And spectator mode is just like, well, it's okay. It's a Band-Aid. We got to go, fix the arm that we accidentally chopped off. Like, so I think that if they had had a little bit more time, maybe, or something, I don't know. If they'd seen the esport coming, we might have had a better shot at spectator mode. But at least this is a beta, and they're looking for feedback. So
yeah, I don't want to take away from the
intend to give it.
I don't want to take away from the excitement of just tournament mode was announced. Like it's and like like I said, give us the bare bones version, but yeah, iterations need to be happening fast and furious on the other side, right? So we need to Vin Diesel those iterations. I really quickly do want to touch upon the Giants Naga Barnes conversation that they had, because he brought up some stuff that it's like the Molten Giant change was pretty exciting because it was a rollback of a nerf as a card moved into the Hall of Fame, which meant that to them Wild matters, and they do want to give you the ability to play decks that you just really enjoy that maybe weren't right for Standard, right? Which I think is a great way to look at it. That being said, some of the arguments he made about, some people really like to play Big Priest. Some people really like to play Naga Sea Witch Giants. Sure, but there's always going to be a fun factor for two players in every single game, and it's not fun for a player to have Coin Barnes pull Yashiraj on turn 3 and then pull another Yashiraj and then just the game to be over, right? So
yeah, and
I do hope that they reconsider. I do hope that they reconsider that stance, that's the most important thing, is letting people play this kind of nostalgia feel, and they actually do look at games. Because if you think about when they changed Quest Rogue, they used the exact opposite argument. The deck wasn't necessarily a super winning deck, but just that it felt unfun to play against, right? And I think the same can be said for a Barnes and this Naga Sea Witch, that they may not be the best decks as far as win percentage is concerned, but they're polarizing decks, and the deck either high rolls or doesn't high roll, and that's not the fun way to play Hearthstone. So I don't want those to just exist in their current form forever in Wild. So he sounded like they're not planning to address it, but that it's something they're monitoring. So I just wanted to point that out. I hope that their stance on that changes.
I mean, he also specifically pointed out that the emotional opinion is important to them, which speaks to the Quest Rogue change that you talked about.
Hey, he addressed both sides of it for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's many things they could do to these cards to keep the power level, like feeling like it's a powerful card when it's played. I mean, I think if Naga Sea Witch cost 7, it would still be a card that would see some play. I think that deck would still be fine. You just have to build it to be a little bit more control-y, and then that turn just happens later in the game, right? If Barnes had some sort of limitation on which minions it could pull out of your deck, like if it's,
like 5 mana or less minions, or something.
Well, yeah, think of recruiting minions that pull out a specific mana cost card. If Barnes did something similar to that, then I think you've got a card that could still be interesting and make deck building challenges and stuff, but not be this thing where it's like, and then I pull Yashiraj and blah, 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 blah. Like, that I think is where that card could land and still be a fun card, but not be this card that just feels like, he got Barnes and then he got Yashiraj and I lose, and that sucks. Which is, I think, the thing that feels bad to most people.
There was also some comments about Warsong Commander, which I thought was interesting. The fact that they're talking about, because obviously with Molten Giant getting unnerfed, then that kind of opens the door to look at all the cards that have been nerfed in the past, and could we maybe go revisit those? And Warsong Commander, I think, is really interesting, and more so the comments around unnerfing things to bring back an archetype as opposed to just like card draw for hunters, because I think Starving Buzzard was also mentioned. And just the idea that, like, okay, we unnerfed Molten Giant because we want people to be able to still play like old school Handlock, And, if we change Warsong Commander, we do have to be really careful because of all the implications that it might have for future sets and whatever because of charge. But I just like the idea of the conversations happening around like bringing back a specific deck or a specific archetype by reversing some of these nerfs. I think was some really interesting comments in there.
Yeah, the Warsong Commander thing specifically was really like him pointing out like that's something we might consider. He also walked it back.
We like Grim Patron, but if we unnerf Warsong, it kind of messes up a whole bunch of stuff down the road. So I think it's really interesting the conversations around that because I don't know. I think I'd like to see Patron Warrior come back because I think it was a real high skill cap deck. So it was fun to watch people play.
And Wild seems like where it should exist, to be honest.
Exactly, yeah.
There's more tools to fight against it, and you'll have other decks with the ability to do equally as powerful things. So
exactly, yeah.
It's not going to be as big of a problem as it was at the time when it was actually out. So.
Yeah. I mean, Young did say that he was just using it as an example to kind of explain their philosophy, but it still gives me hope, and I think it was a really good illustration of their philosophy. Of kind of showing like no, you're talking about basic and classic or you're talking about basic cards. We're not going to probably ever mess with those, but if it's collectible, it's certainly possible. And then also, I mean, this is completely unrelated, but it came from another PC gaming interview, and it was referenced in this Young Woo interview last week when the Year of the Raven and everything got announced. PC Gamer talked to Ben Brode, and he said something that I can't believe I missed, but he said that they're considering adding mage cards from previous expansions back into standard.
They have taken a couple of cards away from Mage.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've lost Ice Block and Ice Lance, and so sure. If it becomes a little bit imbalanced, right, as time goes on, it makes sense. And I wouldn't even begrudge them if they decided to do just an equal number of cards back in as whatever they take out, right? Because you want to kind of keep those newer players, having, and I would also like to see them just give these cards to players if they move them back in, right? So they pick like some mage card from some expansion and say, okay, now it's moving into the basic set or something like that, right? Where it's like you just have this card now.
Yeah, and I think Liv Bar in the chat room was saying not Flame Waker, please.
I don't think Flame Waker would be the card they would choose.
No, they gave the example of Shatter. So
I would think like
don't worry, guys.
Shatter, boo. I would like to see like Duplicate. I think that would be a good one.
Yeah, Brode to quote from the PC Gamer article, they said, however, don't expect these cards to be meta-defining for the obvious reason that they want to avoid creating new problems. In fact, Brode gave the specific example of Shatter as a possible choice. Quote from Ben Brode, I don't think players are itching to see Shatter, but it's kind of a cool combo.
No, it's not.
I was like, are we going to shoot Bro down? Oh, yeah, we're shooting Bro down. Okay, good.
Shooting everybody down today, man. Just aim higher. Just aim higher, please.
Yeah.
Please.
I like Duplicate
aiming higher, but they're just telling us they're aiming low, so our expectations are low, so that when they come out and say, we did this thing, we'll be like,
man, well, if that's the case, last week I was the only one defending tournament mode to you two hyenas, and this week you guys are making me feel like an a-hole.
Wait, I never crapped on a tournament mode.
Yeah, no.
I forget. You had a comment last week where you were like, I was talking about how excited I am, and you were just like, yeah, or you could just be critical,
Sure, yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah. But to your comments, Jocelyn, if the point of all of this is to set the expectations for tournament mode low, consider it effective, because I was excited last week and I am not anymore.
Yeah.
So
I'm still excited. I'm hopeful for beta. We'll put it that way. Yeah. I'm hopeful that beta will be like they're gonna have as many resources on it as they're saying, and we'll get new iterations every other week or something. It'll be like, okay, we patched tournament mode, we built this thing. Here, what do you think now? Yeah. Can you break it? Go.
Bans, that's where I draw the line. Bans has to be in there. Everything else, like I'm pretty salty about only Swiss format. Is like, how do you not put a bracket format in? Like, it seems insane to me, but I can kind of understand whatever.
Well, they already have a Swiss type format built into the game, right, in Arena. So I mean, the tech is already in Hearthstone, kind of, but to actually build a bracket, that would be something that would be 100% new coding. So I can see how they're starting with something they've already built, and then eventually they'll work towards something else.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and then the one that I'm completely sympathetic towards is the no wait list type of thing. I can see how I have no idea how they even begin to build that in. Like mentally, there's a break there for me that I can kind of understand. But the band thing, man, oof, nope, no thanks. Anyways, before we move on to strategy, let's thank our sponsors today. We have a sponsor to thank. Harrys.com is back. You can check them out by going to harrys.com/TAC specifically. We'd really appreciate it if you add that /TAC when you go to check out Harry's offerings. But Harry's has been a very long-running sponsor of the Angry Chicken. If you've never heard about Harry's before, they make wonderful, affordable, high-quality razors to shave your face with or plenty other parts of your body, as we've talked about in past reads about hairy shoulders and whatnot. It takes care of that as well. We've all been converted to Harry's here. We have since gone on to convert multiple members of our friends and family as basically walking infomercials.
I know. I love the shave gel stuff. It makes me smell like a boy, but it works so well. I just don't even care.
Yeah. Yeah, it's solid, man. It's solid. And man, I never used to like shave with a razor. I used to, it used to be all electric all the time. And when Harry started hooking us up with samples and stuff, I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I like it. I like the, I'm going to go and I'm going to lather up and I'm going to take the time. It's relaxing. It makes me calm down when
You're painting too vivid a picture right now, Garrett.
But I'm very close, Jocelyn. I don't know where your brain is going, but I like it. It helps me calm down when I hear that there's not going to be bans in tournament mode. Yeah. Anyways, and they're still offering their free trial offer. So if you haven't heard about it before, they have a free trial offer from Harry's. It's a $13 value. You get it for free when you sign up. The only thing you have to do is cover shipping. You get it by going to harrys.com/TAC. That includes a weighted ergonomic handle, their 5 precision engineered blade with lubricating strip and trimmer blade cartridge, a rich lathering shave gel that Jocelyn loves very much, apparently.
I do.
And a travel blade cover. And again, you can redeem that free trial offer by going to harrys.com/TAC right now, and we thank them for their support. Now, let's talk about those arena-specific cards that we've mentioned before, but we haven't dug too deep on.
Hit it very hard.
Wanna blow something up? Time to pay!
So with the announced arena changes, we're finally getting the arena-specific cards that were announced and selected at BlizzCon. We have talked about them before, but we haven't really dug deep on them. So now that we know they're coming, let's go class by class, in alphabetical order of class, not cards, and discuss these cards. Kicking things off with the Druid Arena card, Nature's Champion, which is a 3-mana Druid spell that reads, return a friendly minion to your hand and give it +5/+5.
That's weird.
It
does not feel like a Druid thing at all for me.
That feels like a rogue thing.
Yeah, bouncing cards.
Yeah, bouncing
very
cards.
strange.
Yeah,
but the buff is even strange for Rogue. Like, I'm trying to think.
It is. I mean, 3 mana +5/+5 is very powerful, and if you get a really good battle cry, that could be very powerful too. But you're bouncing it, getting +5/+5, and then having to replay the card too, right? So it's going to be a pretty specific card as far as what deck you can draft this in.
I mean, it's
like you're gonna want to you're gonna use it for heal, battle cry, re-battle cries. The buff itself is gonna be. There'll be some combos. Charge minions. There you go. Cardigan just said it in chat.
Yeah.
But I don't know. As far as power level goes, it's not overly powerful, I don't think.
No, but it's not awful either. I mean, if you can make a trade, have a minion live, and then send it back to your hand and redeploy it with 5/5 stats, that's
sure.
It's pretty great, even if it doesn't have charge.
Mm-hmm.
It's a late game card though, if you think about it, because you're not going to have the mana in the early game to bounce your 2-drop, because you're going to want to have to put that back on the board right away.
Yeah, but that's what
I think you're going to be using it to kill things towards the end of the game, right?
Yeah, mid to late. Yeah.
Turn 5 think about a Druid of the Claw, something later on in the game. You can, if it lives or whatever, and you can hit something and then you bounce it back, and then you get a giant taunt minion. Mm-hmm. Pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Or a giant charging minion.
Yeah, I'm assuming it works with transforming cards, as it's Druid specific. It better.
Well, yeah. Once you transform it, that card is that card, right? It's either the charging cat or the taunting bear.
Yeah,
it just becomes that card. So if it bounces, it is that thing again.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I think you're right. It's you throw it back. You don't keep this in your mulligan.
No.
You hope to find.
I mean, I would
wrong.
definitely draft this card pretty heavily, though. I think you'd probably only ever want a couple of these. You would never want like 3 or 4 of these in an arena deck because, you don't want to be bouncing minions back the whole time. But like, there's a few times I've played Youthful Brewmaster in arena and stuff, and it's been decent. If I have really strong battle cries, so. But in arena, it's all about tempo, right? Like it just is. So.
Well, it was
you
all
lose
about
tempo and
tempo.
gain it.
It might change.
That's true. It might become more of a play around things, answer and response type of thing, which in this case, that would be really good because you'd be putting a fairly large threat on the board, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you could get this on a minion with Divine Shield, like that kind of stuff, that can be real good.
Yeah. The next one is the Hunter card called Deadeye. It's a 2-mana spell that reads, for the rest of the game, your hero power can also target minions. Yes.
Yeah, that's strong.
This makes me so happy.
Yeah, you can actually
I
play
wish this was
Control
just
Hunter.
in standard. Please.
Sure. Well, there used to be that 2-mana 2/3 that
What,
would
a
allow you to
Steam
do it
Weedle
while
Sniper?
it was alive. But
Yeah,
the
but this
problem
is
with
a
that was that
persistent
eventually it would die.
effect. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I remember being so excited about the Steam Weedle Sniper when that got announced back in GVG days. I'm like, oh
Sure.
my god, Control Hunter,
But you
here it
could
comes.
never keep it alive. That
Nope.
was always the
Yeah.
problem.
No, it's like pay 2 mana, hope you have 4, so you can pay another 2 mana immediately to remove something that has 2 health because this guy's dying next turn.
Yeah. So for 2 mana, you're basically getting Shadow Form, which is 3 mana for Priest,
Yes.
right? So that's pretty strong. It's a better version of Shadow Form. So that's you can't really say this is bad. Also in arena, again, like the tempo play at least in our current, we have to kind of talk about these cards from what we know, which is what arena currently is. So being able to just ping things off for 2 and deal 2 damage, that's massive. I mean, the difference between 2 and 1 when you're talking pings is just so damn large in arena. I actually think
even
that
then,
Shadow
like
Form
Mage
gets
at 1 has been a super powerful hero power in arena for a long time,
forever.
right? So
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
if Hunter all of a sudden gets to do double what Mage does, it's going to be super powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's,
Now they do have to pay 2 at some point just to get there, and they have to draw the
Yeah.
card just to get there. So, yeah, and then you probably don't ever want to draft 2 of these because the second copy would be redundant. So
Right.
I think it's balanced. I don't think it's like overpowered, but it does enable a new archetype for Hunter, which is cool.
it's too powerful to exist in Constructed, which is where I think I want these cards to be. I don't want them to be completely busted, but I want them to be just over the crest of comfortable for Constructed.
Yeah. You don't want to be introducing DK level cards into Arena again because we already saw what the problem with those were. Like, oh, I drew this card, now I win.
Yeah.
That you never want that to happen in Arena.
If they going back, I almost wish that they just gave everyone their Death Knight at the start of your arena draft during that that phase. Like everyone,
Yeah, it
you
doesn't even give you 3 choices. Just pops up the Death Knight. Like here.
yeah, you start with one card already selected. It's the Death Knight
Yeah.
for the class that you picked. That would have been
Yeah, but
interesting.
see that I wouldn't like that either because then it's who draws the Death Knight who wins.
Fair enough.
I'm happier with the no Death Knights at all.
Fair enough. Polymorph question mark is next for Mage. It's a
I
5-minute.
love the name of this
Yep.
card.
Polymorph question mark. It's a 5-mana spell that reads: choose a minion, discover a new minion to transform it into. This is
So
great.
it costs
Great.
1 more than straight up polymorph where you always know the result. The thing is there's no mana cost tied to the minion that you're discovering, right? So
No,
it's
it
not
could be
like discover
literally
something that
anything.
costs 1 less or 1
Yeah.
more or something like that. Like it could be anything. So I don't know. This might be the worst of the bunch, which is okay because Mage is pretty good.
Well, and I
Um,
think that was the kind of feeling at the crowd at BlizzCon. I can't remember what polymorph
Yeah.
question mark was up against, but it was like, let's not make Mage stronger.
Sure.
Like, let's give them something quirky and just
Yeah.
leave it at that.
Yeah, but it's not.
So one thing though is if you can get a token onto the board on your side, this is dope because you can take
Right, it
a-
doesn't have to be an
crappy
enemy.
minion.
It can be a friendly minion too.
Yeah. You could take a crappy minion and potentially turn it into something super awesome. So that's kind of cool. But and then of course the reverse, you can They drop a giant 9-mana bomb onto the board, and then you can pretty much
Anything's
reliably
better
turn
than
it into
that.
something worse. Yeah.
Yeah. It has the flex, and that's why. Like I get what you're saying. Like in the pantheon of mage power, this isn't that powerful, but it's not total crap either. The flex that this has makes it an interesting card, and you're not gonna completely hate your life if you have to draft it.
Yeah. But sometimes you're gonna, polymorph a Ysera, and it's gonna give you like Lich King, Kraken, like it's gonna give you like all these like awesome options. You're gonna be like, I don't want to turn into any of this stuff. Like I guess it's better than Ysera.
Where's the wisp?
Yeah. So this is also gonna feel super high rolly, low rolly to people sometimes too. But I get the sense that when tier lists start to come out for this card, it's not gonna be listed super high as far as like it's not. I don't think you're gonna see it as
and
much
not
because
just
power level. Yeah.
At least it's a discover mechanic, so you still have a little bit of control.
A little bit of control, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Paladin's next. It's Hand of Salvation, a 1-mana spell, and also the only secret among all of these. It reads, when your second minion dies in a turn, return it to life. That's cool.
It is cool. It's hard to reliably play and know what's going to happen but the thing is, I mean, it's not coming back to life with 1 health or anything like that, right?
It just comes back, right?
Yeah.
So it's whatever the original version of the card is.
2 decent minions in a turn, and like if you have the secret up, and then you just kind of keep 2 decent minions up in a turn, that's going to make things really interesting. Plus, redemption is still there, so it's going to make things really difficult for people to play around because they're going to have to decide whether they think it's Hand of Salvation or redemption. Right, so the thing is, you're going to play this, and you're not going to want to be hero powering too, right? So there's some limitations to this card that kind of keep it in line, but it also, I like that it's a secret that adds a new thought into the opponent's head, right? Which I think how secrets should generally always work, right? They should always make your opponent like, oh no, how do I play around this? What's the most optimal way? And that's kind of what secrets do, even though the effect might not be the most powerful. It makes the opponent play less than optimal on their turn, which is nice.
Yeah, and this is our second week in a row. I would like to say, please add Snipe back for hunters.
Yes, please.
Priest is next. Generous Spirit. It's a 2-mana spell. Choose a friendly minion, give it to your opponent, and draw 3 cards. Yes, please.
Dream is Doomsayer. That could be cool, but that's not something that happens very often in Arena. You just don't really pick Doomsayer very often, to be quite honest. So yeah, you'll probably be having to find tokens that don't really matter, where you're like, I will trade this crappy minion for 3 cards, please.
It wouldn't be...
So it's kind of like Treachery, right? Because that's how Treachery works. You choose one of your minions and give it to your opponent.
Yeah, but you don't get to draw any cards.
Right, exactly. Oh, no, like this is...
For
that's
1
what I'm
less
saying.
mana, you also draw 3 cards.
Yeah, it works like Treachery, but also lets you draw cards. So real good.
Yeah. I mean, there's tons of minions in Arena that have some sweet battle cry but have a crappy body, so if you have this in your deck, those become much better because you're like, yeah, I will cash these in for 3 cards. Sure, no problem.
I can't
the
wait
thing though is, in Arena, you're not going to often have the perfect card. Like in the chat, Loxadir just said Bomb Squad. Yeah, that's
a thing that could happen, but
that could happen, but most often you're drafting quality tempo cards, and so you more than likely just have decent minions, and you won't often have a minion that you really want to give the opponent. You just can't make sure that happens, right? Like you can do in Constructed. So
the realistic
that's why you don't see
scenario
Treachery
is
in Arena.
The realistic scenario is giving them one of your early minions that survived a trade. Like that's your like realistic hope, right? Although I can't wait to give my opponent a Northshire Cleric and continue.
Or
healing
you
it.
give your opponent like a 1/1 that you can kill immediately that turn, right?
Yeah.
Because you give it to them immediately. It's not like that 6 mana steal something at the beginning of their next turn or whatever.
Right.
It's like it just
right away.
changes sides when you play it.
Rogue's next. Smoke Bomb. It's a 1-mana spell. Give a minion stealth until your next turn. Draw a card. Sure.
So you put a potion, or a spare part and a poison into 1 card, and it costs 1 mana.
And it's
That's
Rogue.
Yeah.
So it's 1 mana. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like this card is going to be super strong for Rogue because combo enabler. Drawing cards is good. Making a powerful minion not die, that's also really good. So tons of great uses for this card. This card is super sweet. This is one of the better ones.
Yeah. It just works so well for the class that it's being built for. Anything else? Just good. Moving on. Cool.
Yeah, just good. I mean, just good. Like, yeah.
Yep. This next one is interesting. It's the
actually, we should bring up this point too that Kraz the Madman just said. It says give a minion stealth, not friendly minion, so you can bypass taunt with it.
Oh, right. I didn't even think about that.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. So you can bypass taunt for lethal.
All right.
Pretty sweet.
All right, y'all ready for some insanity? Because the Shaman card is next. It's called Crackling Doom. It costs 0 mana, and it reads, deal 12 damage to all minions. It's 12 damage.
There's another part to this.
Yes, overload 10.
Overload 10, so skip your next turn.
You just skip your next turn, yeah. But your turn is irrelevant. What turn you're currently on is irrelevant.
Yeah. You play this for 0, and then you immediately load the board that turn. So you don't need to do anything the next turn because now you flip the board completely. Your opponent the onus is on your opponent now to answer your new board. So, yeah, it's kind of like Volcano on steroids, right? Like you're just like, yep, board gone. Now I will load up with a bunch of awesome minions and now the next turn my opponent has to answer. So maybe instead of developing, they're answering. Even if they develop as their answer, you then have your minions get essentially charged, right, the next turn because they're the ones that were played first. You steal initiative, right? So people in chat are saying, or play a card that unlocks crystals again. Yeah, if you do that on the exact same turn you play Crackling Doom, yeah, you won't be able to play it the next turn. But you could play this plus, what is it, Lava Shock? Is Lava Shock even in Standard anymore, though? I don't think it is.
I don't think
the once Arena goes back to regular, I don't even think that's
right, because Lava Shock's a wild card.
Yeah.
That being said,
and I think the other one is too. The 3/2 is also a wild card. So I don't think there's any unlocked mana crystals cards anymore in Standard.
Not at the moment, no. Not unless they alter Arena's pool again in the future without removing the Arena-specific cards.
If they add more ones in, or they go to, if we're playing Wild for a little bit again, yeah. But this card's going to be added back in after Wild Arena has rotated out. One cool thing, though, to note about this card is it's going to, I think, make Shaman a little bit more viable in Arena again. Because right now Shaman really sucks because they added all those Freeze Shaman cards. And Freeze Shaman cards are terrible. And they make up a fairly large percentage at this point of the cards that you see. So Shaman's really gotten hit hard in Arena.
I think they need to add this card to Wild because I think we just found the answer to Barnes and Naga Sea Witch.
There you go.
Yeah. Doesn't matter
if you ever get Barnes or Naga Sea Witched in Arena, there you go. Crackling Doom.
All right, Warlock is next. It's Bottled Madness. It's another 0 mana spell, but this time for Warlock. That reads, replace your hand with random demons.
Good. Warlock didn't need any help.
Yeah.
This card sucks.
Yeah,
I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this ever. I mean, I guess I could end up with a whole bunch of terrible cards. But...
That's what I was just thinking is if you see Bottled Madness at the end of your draft and you're looking at your draft being like, this is the worst draft I've ever had, then you take Bottled Madness.
Yeah. The problem is there's so many demons that just have terrible drawbacks and aren't that great in return.
Mm-hmm.
This is why like Cabal Trafficker is really good because you can just play it as a 6-mana 6/6, and sometimes it gives you a good minion, sometimes it gives you a bad one, but you just decide whether to play it or not. It's like at least I'm just getting a card. This is just like, no, also take away all my potentially useful cards and turn them into potentially terrible cards. No.
Yeah.
No.
But again, like the feeling of BlizzCon very much was the same for Warlock as it was for Mage. Like they've been good. We don't need them to still be good. Let's screw them over a little.
I'm with that.
Yeah, maybe the only like Rogue got a good card though, and Paladin got a good card, and they're doing pretty well. But
I'm glad that they just didn't give Warlock some AOE. And there's like, hey, you want some more AOE, Warlock? It's like, no, this card is, it's like Renounced Darkness, and that and it's not even giving you a discount. What if it was random demons and then they're all discounted one?
And they're cheaper, then that could be a thing. Yeah.
But it's not. So just bad card. This is the worst card. Polymorph question marks is looking at this and smiling like, oh, thanks. I'm not complete trash.
So Federalist in the chat says that Warlock's not broken in Arena. It's not, but at the time it kind of was, and it's still very strong.
And it's always been strong just because of the hero power, right? Like
the hero power and the amount of at this point now the amount of heals and board clears is really why.
Yeah. Right, final card for Warrior, Blazing Longsword. It's the only non-spell. It's a 3-mana, 2 attack, 3 durability weapon that reads, also damages minions next to whomever your hero attacks. A great card.
This is super strong. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They lost their OP 2-mana weapon, so they gave him an OP 3-mana weapon. That's great. Yeah. It gives you 3 power shots for 3 mana. That should cost you 9. You do have to take some damage in the process, but whatever.
Yeah, my armor's not doing me much other good in Arena, so might as well use it to offset my amazing Blazing Longsword, which is not a euphemism.
This card is insane.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, that's been one of their issues, right? Is they don't have a way to really reliably AOE anybody, and so basically they're always kind of weaponing things down. Or they're hoping that they got a Brawl, which is an epic card, which, yes, they do show up more often, but they don't always show up. There's definitely plenty of Whirlwind effects, but those always hit for 1. Sometimes you need a little more. So, yeah, this is pretty sweet. And sometimes you can, hit something that doesn't have a lot of attack, and it's next to something that's giant, and you execute the giant thing without having to take all that damage. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So, overall, I mean, most of these cards, pretty interesting. You're going to want to draft them in certain drafts with, I think the only exception being Bottled Madness. I'm going to avoid that card like the plague. The rest of these, I can see myself taking on purpose.
I will draft all of these the first time I see them.
I gotta play with them, right?
I want to play with them, yeah.
Dills,
they're all super cool. They're all really interesting, and they do something super unique and something that does feel like it shouldn't exist in Constructed, which is what matters.
Which was the point. I remember because I was just a little bit late for this panel at BlizzCon, so I missed the intro of them being for Arena only, and I saw these cards up on the screen. And I was like, "What the cluck?" They can't put these into they can't put these in Standard. These are ridiculous. And they're like, "Oh, it's Arena only." I was like, "Oh, okay."
I'm sorry, but I have to.
Cluck.
Just had to.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah. I missed the panel entirely. I don't remember what the hell else I was doing. It was a very busy BlizzCon, but I remember going on Hearthstone afterwards and being like, wait, what? What happened?
Yeah. Okay, there's points being brought up in the chat room I've been kind of addressing, but we should just talk about it on the show. So when these cards were decided, it was at BlizzCon. There were multiple cards put up on the screen, and then it was voting by applause about which ones were going to end up in Arena. And there were a lot of them that really weren't close. You could tell which one was the more popular one based on the crowd's reaction. So, but the VODs are, they're not up anymore. The BlizzCon VODs, at least Blizzard's version of them, only last, 6 weeks or something after BlizzCon if you have the virtual ticket. Yeah. After that, they take them down. So,
I'm going to agree with the chat room, by the way, real quick, that it is probably an odd, at least, and maybe a bad way to add cards into Arena is to have people vote by applause at BlizzCon where everyone is drunk from excitement.
Yes, I agree.
Just imagine when you've gone to any BlizzCon in the past or whatever and you've seen cards being shown for the first time and you're like, oh my God. Okay, I remember going to the one in San Francisco and Koldara Drake comes up and we're like, oh my God, that's crazy. And that's your initial reaction to it, not a thought out, realistic depiction of how strong or good or bad that card really is, right?
That's the thing. The whole entire panel was 45 minutes long. So it was very much flash it up on the screen, this does this, this does this, this does this, by applause, bam, bam, bam. Okay, this wins. Moving on to the next class. There was no time. It'd be cooler if
we did an online vote.
Yeah, exactly. Which was, was something I think I said way back when we were actually at BlizzCon is why was this just the BlizzCon crowd? Why wasn't there some sort of online voting or whatever? I think would have been a better way to do it. But especially
what though, it added to the hype in the moment. And that's
It did.
That's probably what they were thinking. Is
Yeah.
like, how hype is this going to be when people are applauding for a card they want in Arena right now, right?
But then
And-
that's the other thing too, is it took them so long to actually implement that now Arena, they've made so many other changes since then. Arena is a different beast now. So it's like, this would have been great if it was implemented, the week
next
after
day.
BlizzCon. Yeah, but because they've taken so long now and they've made so many Arena changes, like, we might vote differently based on how
Sure.
Arena is now. So,
I'd like
yeah.
to see what the other cards were now.
I was going to say, and I'm sure you can find them posted online. But yeah, I would like to see them, kind of give all the cards a chance in Arena. And I don't know, like if they're going to have Arena specific cards, then I'd like to see them happen more often, I think. And they also didn't tell us how long, how long these are going to remain in Arena, right? Like they're being put in for a limited time, but we don't know how long that's going to be.
Maybe I've just burnt up all of my criticism, but I'm okay with that. I think that's fine. With the way that they've been continually...
It gives them a little bit of flexibility, right?
Yeah.
Like if people hate it, they could be like, it was only a week, we're sorry.
Yeah.
We're
Arena
taking it back.
Arena has become the most flexible mode in Hearthstone. They're doing a lot of changes to it now, whether they let us know or not, frankly.
Right.
Get my little jab in there while I can, get my jab in while I can. But overall, I just kind of expect not to have anything kind of set in stone for Arena. I wasn't expecting for them to announce, and they're coming, and they'll be here for 2 months. Like I expected to know when they're coming, or to know that they're coming, and that's it. And then they can, make changes as needed. And that's the kind of flex that I like to see. That's where I am okay with not having everything spelt out to me, because I kind of want Arena to be flexible, especially after the synergy picks, because that's where I'm like, yeah, let's move on. Let's try something different.
Chat room saying that the virtual ticket people can still go and watch the Choose stream if you want. So that's awesome, because I thought that they had said they were only going to be available for a month, and that was obviously BlizzCon was in November. So
yeah, that's it. Usually,
I guess they just haven't taken them down yet.
Is everything still available?
I don't know.
I haven't. I just didn't try going back, because in years past I have tried going back and everything was just gone.
And they're
all
gone, yeah.
So I'm looking at the pictures right now. I found an article that's just showing them. I'll link it in chat. This article is just showing them like someone just took pictures of the screen. You can see all the cards here. So like Hunter had Reload, 2 mana, discard your hand, draw 3 cards, and Volley, add 3 random shot spells to your hand, and then Deadeye.
Right.
And so yeah, everyone voted for Deadeye, but man, Reload, that would have been pretty freaking sweet too.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have an empty hand, you're like, let me just draw 3 cards for 2 mana.
Yep.
That sounds awesome. So especially in Arena, like that's the kind of situation that comes up pretty often. So yeah, I don't know. I might have chosen differently than some of these. Oh my God. 1 mana, discover a legendary minion? Why did people not choose that?
Again, because everyone hated Mage at the time, so they were like, we don't want them to have a 1 mana discover a legendary spell in Arena. That's no.
Oh, I'm glad I held my tongue. I was gonna say I feel like I remember the cards kind of all being equal power level, and no,
No,
they are
definitely
not.
weren't.
Oh my
They're
God.
dope. Wow.
Yeah, this is great. Well, I'll include a link to this in the show notes for those listening on audio. But yeah, there's definitely some differences here. Paladin got 2 secrets, but one of them was not a secret. It was Relic of Hope. It was a 0 mana spell. It said when you draw this, transform it into a random Paladin spell.
See, that sucks.
Yeah,
But
that's crap.
Retribution, I think, is way better than Hand of Salvation.
Yeah, Retribution was the other secret that was up for round of applause voting. It's a 1 mana secret. When an enemy attacks your hero, deal 4 damage to it. I don't know.
Crap. That's so good.
I don't know. I kind of like. I like Salvation better.
I don't know, man. When you're just killing a minion for 1 mana, like that's. Oh,
But wouldn't it be cool if all of these were just in Arena?
Yeah, sure.
Like,
all
why are we even choosing one?
All right,
I'm with you.
here's my hopeful tinfoil hat. Is that these all might find their way into the game at some point. That they may phase out this group of 9 and bring in another 9 from the possible 3, and eventually we'll see all 3 for each class in the game at some point.
Yeah, I can see that.
I hope so.
I mean, clearly they put the thought into it.
Well, that's the thing. They've got the art. They've got the, names and everything. The cards are made. They're ready to go.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the cards. None of them have changed. They're going in verbatim as we saw back in November. So there's no reason to in my mind, to think that we won't eventually see the other cards.
Mm-hmm.
So please and thank you. All right. Well, before we move into emails and wrap this up, we have another sponsor to thank today, BarkBox, which you can find by going to barkbox.com/TAC. Oh, I love BarkBox. If you don't know what BarkBox is, it's a delivery of basically like 4 to 6 natural treats and toys curated around like a surprise theme. If there's a holiday going on, you can probably think of what the theme is. And if there's not a holiday going on, it's a big surprise for your dog, for your fuzzy little family. And if you don't know how it works, you basically choose your dog's size. They have 0 to 20 pounds, 20 to 50 pounds, 50 pounds and up. You also choose a plan. You can do a 1 month, a 6 month, or a 12-month plan. The shipping is free and you can cancel anytime. It's like a WoW subscription, guys. We're nerds. We know how this works. And the boxes ship out on the 15th of each month. So you can expect a care package of treats and toys for your dogs around the middle of every single month. My wife Katie and I have been subscribed to BarkBox for over a year now, even though my dogs clearly don't have enough toys. But it's also had this really this side effect that I wasn't expecting, where we don't buy treats anymore. We just don't bother. Like we just have this huge cabinet just bursting at the seams with dog treats that we've gotten from BarkBox. And I have picky dogs. There hasn't been a failure yet. There has not been a swing and a miss from a BarkBox treat. And I am frankly impressed because, I send my dogs to my parents to dog sit. And there's a lot of nose turning up at the quality of dog treats that my parents decide to buy, but BarkBox somehow works for our 2 snooty little chihuahuas. So needless to say, we're big fans here. When they approached the show and were like, "Hey, are you interested in a BarkBox sponsorship?" I'm like, "Yes, I've already been promoting your product to my friends and family. I would love that." So definitely check it out. I mean, it's shipped to your door. They've got a unique variety of toys and treats. A lot of them you're not going to find anywhere else. All of the edibles are made in the U.S. and Canada, and they will replace any of the items that your dog doesn't like. I haven't had to take advantage of this yet.
That's huge.
Yeah. Wow. I haven't had to take advantage of this yet, but it is there if you're concerned. So check it out.
I mean, it's not like I have a picky dog, but the odd thing might come through the door that he's like, eh. Like he usually like has several toys at any given time. There's always one that's his favorite, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
But when that one is thoroughly destroyed, he will generally move on to the next.
Yep. Yeah, we get the box, and so first off, the dogs start getting excited because they become used to the BarkBox showing up now. And then there's always more than one toy. So Katie and I will like pick one, pick the other, we'll look at them, we're like, all right, this one's going to Bailey, this one's going to Zelda, and almost inevitably they end up stealing from each other and then stealing back, and it didn't matter anyway. But it's a fun exercise for my wife and I. Damn it. So,
as long as you 2 are entertained.
Exactly. So it's also a great gift idea. Like if you don't have dogs, or even if you do have dogs, but your friends have dogs and you're trying to think of something to get them, check it out. Like consider getting them a BarkBox subscription. And on top of all of this, you get a free month when you sign up for a 6 or 12-month subscription by visiting barkbox.com/TAC. Again, that's a free month when you sign up for a 6 or 12-month subscription. Check them out, barkbox.com/TAC. We thank them for their support. Now let's crack open that mailbag.
Hello?
Hello, it's me.
Hello?
Just quickly, do you get my message?
Yep.
Oh.
Hello, brother.
You can send your emails to tacpodcast@gmail.com. Dills, would you like to get started this week?
Yeah, Gerardo says, "Hola, pollos rabiosos." Okay, another one I'm going to have to do some Googling for.
That's a new one.
With the classic technique of check Blizzard's purchases on GoDaddy. Okay. Reddit might have our big clue on the next expansion with the domain name Cenarian Circle. But what could a single class expansion be? Link to the thread. They could repeat the idea of Death Knights and give everyone a hero legendary beast form. Moonkin for mage, tree druid or tree dude for priest, bears for warrior, paladin, wolf for shaman, snake for warlock, stag, blah blah blah. With a choose one hero power, but are druids popular enough to pull it off? Well, I mean, druid is the jack of all trades in World of Warcraft, right? But I doubt that's really what's. I mean, look, that's a fun idea. I think
he's
the
probably...
Cenarian Circle thing is probably accurate, but I don't think that, everyone's going to become a druid. I don't think is the answer here. But if they were, it could possibly work because druid is and druid would be the only class it could work for.
Right, because druids definitely do everything. Even they go all the way from two kinds of DPS. They have melee and range. So, I mean, they do literally do everything.
Yeah.
But
and they turn into seals and eagles and all this stuff. Yeah.
But yeah, I think Cenarian Circle is a really good guess for what the next expansion could be, just because with the release of Lunara and with the artwork, it looks very emerald, dreamy, druid-centric for sure. But I don't know, like there's multiple different, the Cenarian Circle isn't 100% druids, is it? I can't remember now.
Well, it's very
druid and fae folk.
It's not like there's rangers and things like that also hanging around.
Right, yeah. And all the player characters, Cenarian Circle is one of the things that you can grind rep with in World of Warcraft. So
it's just
all of the different, so all the different classes are kind of involved.
I would expect there will be lots of druidic style neutral minions and things like that, but I would also expect that they're not going to focus mainly on like everyone becomes a druid. It's not the same way as like Death Knights, right? Like Death Knights, like everyone dies and becomes a Death Knight. That's kind of a thing.
That's a little bit different than like I was a warlock, but I am going to change my calling and become a druid instead.
There is precedent in Warcraft for people kind of class changing over time, though, right? Like
definitely.
There are people who started as hunters what is it? Anduin is like priest, but also kind of other thing-ish.
He's
right?
looking pretty paladin in Legion, or not Legion, in Battle for Azeroth.
In Battle for Azeroth,
like the people kind of shift around. So there's something there, but
yeah,
I find it highly unlikely.
I mean, I think it could work. I mean, like even if we had to do a druid version of like Gul'dan, there's been evil druids, so I think it could kind of work.
That's true.
My hesitation is just it's too close to Death Knights, and so far Team 5 seems to be on the trend of making their next class-specific legendary thing very different than the last. We went from quests to Death Knights to weapons. So I think it hasn't been a long enough break from Lich King. Or not Lich King.
I wonder if we're going to get some sort of transformative style class thing like the weapons and the Death Knights, or if they're just going to kind of go back to, here's some sweet legendary minions, which...
Man, that being said...
That was always the way legendaries worked for the longest time, right? They were all minions. They were none of them were spells. We could just go for straight up legendary spells this time, and then it's, a spell that has a one-time effect that's really cool and powerful, but isn't, a persistent weapon or a persistent DK. That could be interesting.
That being said, man, the more I think about like assigning an animal, or at least an Azerothian animal, to each class, that's kind of cool. And also has like a Voltron Power Rangers feel that I can get behind.
I think there's a lot of cool stuff that they can play with around those themes. I don't know. I'm thinking like some sort of like everyone gets a legendary choose one spell or something that does something unique for whatever class it's being used in. That could be cool.
Okay, so everyone gets to choose one effect.
Yeah.
All right. I could be on board with that. I do like. I really enjoy cards that ask you to decide what you want to do with them, right? So
I like the
we even just saw in the BlizzCon thing that there was one card. Let me see if I can see it again. It was a shaman card, Refreshing Jolt, which could either deal 4 damage to an enemy or restore 8 health to a friendly character, depending on who you aimed it at, right? That kind of stuff is always really cool. There's a lot of those effects in Eternal, and a lot of classes get to use them. There's tons and tons of and Magic, of course, has things like choose 2 out of 4. Like, there's all kinds of stuff like that. And I find those cards to be really fun. So I would be super into something like that.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm down. I like it. I'm not sure it'll be this like literally, but I like that.
But I'm sure Cenarian Circle is probably the name of the next expansion. That fits with everything that Blizzard has told us so far, I think.
Yeah.
Everything they've hinted at.
Or Emerald Dream-ish. But Joss, you want to take the final email today?
Sure. This one comes to us from Jamie, who says, "Hello, flock of grumpy Gallus domesticus." That's one we've had before. Today, after reading the news about the Year of the Raven, I had an interesting idea about changing the formats. My idea is that Standard and Wild could have separate card pools besides Basic and Classic sets. This would mean cards from the current Standard format could not be used in Wild until they rotate out. I feel this would create 2 very distinct metas in both formats. at the downside of limiting the players who can play Wild effectively, since many of the sets are only available by buying cards with real money or crafting, both of which make it difficult for new players to enter the Wild meta. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this idea. Maybe it could become an event of some type where only Wild format cards are available in Arena or in a Tavern Brawl. So what do you guys think about taking these standard cards out of Wild? I think this has kind of come up a little bit recently with the talk of the changes to, say, like Raza, for instance, where it's like, yeah, they're about to rotate out, but they've always been in Wild. So they've been kind of problematic in Wild for up to 2 years. What do you guys think about just, if they're going to do that kind of balancing, what do you think about not having standard cards in Wild at all? Other than basically Classic.
I absolutely hate it, because the interesting thing about Wild is when new cards come out, I get to play with them with really old cards. I get to pair them together and figure out how they interact. Now, if you wanted to make a third format that's called Vintage, sure, but I don't. You need to have a format
kind of
where
what it would become,
all the cards are available, because when a new expansion comes out, that's the joy of Wild at that moment, is now taking all these new cards and figuring out how they interact with cards that have been out of standard for a year or so. But yeah, I think the only way to implement this is a third format.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything against this idea, but the thought of it replacing how Wild currently works is where my hesitation comes in. I wouldn't mind trying it. Like a month of this would be fine, as long as it's not on like a month where an expansion releases.
Yeah, I mean that's the issue. It's like you're taking away the fun for Wild players, So it's if it's a third format, hell yeah, dude, that'd be sweet. That'd be super fun. Yeah. Because I have in the past, we've done like one-off little tournaments where we pick and choose from like 2 adventures and 2 expansions, and then have people try to build decks with those. And that's always an interesting little deck building exercise. You can't make pure archetypes anymore. So a lot of times you have to build, you have to find synergies where you're missing like 3 or 4 key pieces of it. So you abandon certain things and you have to figure out what other things can be done still. And that's always kind of fun. But it's like, man, if I couldn't play with some of the cards from Kobolds and Catacombs in Wild like that, I'd be real sad,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like what you're just described, Dills, where you pick like, here's 2 adventures, here's 2 expansions. I mean, you're basically building a cube, except from full sets. Oh, are you muted or talking to Iggy?
We lost Dills.
Yeah, not sure what's going on there. But whatever the case is, more formats would be a good thing.
Yeah.
Wondering if his mic cut out or something.
Sorry, I'm back.
Oh, okay.
No,
okay.
Excited.
I just got a phone call that could have potentially been really important, so I had to double check on what was going on.
Oh, gotcha. Well, I hope everything's okay. Well, anyways, thank you for your emails, everybody. Keep them coming to tacpodcast@gmail.com. And that's more or less going to wrap it up for the show. We, as always, need to thank our patrons supporting us at patreon.com/TAC. If you enjoy The Angry Chicken, you want to support the 3 of us and the podcast itself, that is the best way to do so. Some new patrons to thank this week. Thank you to Scott H., Avon OL, and John MG. Thank you very much for the support. And huge thanks to our producers, Declan H., Michael N., Sean C., Johnny S., and LVE. By the way, I looked it up. Pollos Rabiosos. Gerardo called us rabid chickens. Rabid chickens, which I probably should have put together. I know what pollo means, and rabioso sounds very similar to rabid. But yeah. Anyways, also, if you dig the show and you want to help us out for free, drop us a 5-star review on iTunes. It helps us find new listeners. You can check out the back catalog at amove.tv. All of that is over there. Catch us live Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/amovetv. Join the chat. Correct us. Give us new ideas. Make me laugh like someone did earlier today. But before we go, Dills, where can everybody find your extra work outside of Angry Chicken and whatnot?
You can check me out at Willie Dills on Twitter, and twitch.tv/Willie Dills is where you find me streaming. And check out youtube.com/Willie Dills. Just posted the video from doing the Power Hour thing with my buddy Ty, which was pretty fun. So I'm going to do more weird offshoot Don Hearthstone things there. So if you're not subscribed to that, go ahead and feel free to do so.
Awesome. And Jocelyn, how about you?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays. Also go and follow BattleNet's Sports. If you're interested at all in HCT Toronto, that's where my HCT Toronto coverage is going to be. That's where I'm playing in HCT Toronto this weekend. So want a real good inside look at the tournament, then go to the Convert to Raid BattleNet Sports page. You can also check out Shipwrecks and Shanties. It's our short run podcast about Sea of Thieves. So if you're interested at all in Sea of Thieves, go and check out Shipwrecks and Shanties.
Awesome. And good luck in your HCT this weekend, Joss.
Thanks. I'm excited and nervous and don't really think I'll go that far, but it's going to be fun anyways. There's a lot of really big name players, so I hope I get to meet them and say hi and fangirl out a little bit. And it's going to be some great Hearthstone. So
hey, listen, I enjoyed having my soul crushed by your big spell mage yesterday, so I have faith in you.
You're giving away my secrets, Garrett. Shh.
Folks, I'm on Twitter at Garrett Art. All of the other podcasts I do can be found at amove.tv. A fresh, brand new episode of Let's Talk About Star Wars is going up tonight about the Rebels finale. And speaking of, Hearthstone and non-Blizzard content, I have renamed my solo show. Finally, it's no longer called The Angry Nerd because I never am angry on there. I'm always talking about things that I really, really deeply love. And since I'm always reminding everyone that my name is spelled with 2 R's and 2 T's, I've gone ahead and renamed it R2T2. Which you can find anywhere podcasts can be found. The most recent episode is a beginner's guide to Into the Breach. So go pick that up if you're playing that game, which I think is the best use of $15 ever. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week. But until then, job's done.
Job's done.
Job's done.
Yes!
That's a solid yes. It's like a good classic yes.
Yeah, that was an old school yes. All right, this puppy is staring me down. Okay, dude. I know. Thank you for not throwing up this week, by the way.
Oh, that's just lovely.
Yeah, I'm gonna take his butt out, and I will talk to you guys soon.
See you, Dan.
Jocelyn, let's not miss Thursday this time.
Good show,
Yes,
everybody.
agreed.
Okay.
You're going to be around?
Yeah, I'll be around.
Okay, cool.
Bye, chat room.